Richard,
Dom,
welcome to the podcast, mate.
thank you very much.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Sat on the roof.
Yeah. Lovely sunny-ish day.
Working
in
around the sun
London.
for the camera. Yeah. Hey, big news has happened in the industry.
Indeed. Yeah.
I feel really honoured to be able to ask you, probably one of the very first people to have the pleasure to get this opportunity. Why from Soho to Sassoon?
I guess for me it doesn't seem such a strange thing, but I guess from outwardly it might look like a sort of a big shift, but for me it feels a very natural progression. For me it's coming back to my roots and embracing an opportunity that not many of us get in our lives, which is to kind of come full circle. And so
you say full circle then.
Yeah.
Just take us back, so because your history with Sassoon.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started my career with my mother's hairdresser in Sheffield, a guy called Robert Taylor. He's got 4 amazing sons that were all hairdressers as well, and I started my career there. And Robert was incredible. I feel like really showed me the ropes in sort of how to think about shape and, finish hair. But he was no hair cutter, and he'll be the first to admit that. And really, there was a moment, I had a bit of a light bulb moment, and I picked up a magazine one day, and there was a Sassoon collection in it, and it was called The Wrap. And for me, that was a major awakening. And first thing I did was I ran and scraped every penny I could together. Didn't have enough. Went back to my boss, and I went on a course at Sassoon because I knew that's what I wanted to be doing. Little did I know that in a year's time I'd be working at Sassoon. But I applied for a job whilst I was on the course and moved to London maybe about 12 months later, really to learn the Sassoon thing. I was completely in love with it from the moment I saw it. And I think in my mind, back in the day, I thought, I'll work here for 2 or 3 years and then I'll go and open my own salon. But fell in love with everything that was Sassoon during that first period and stayed for almost 20 years. I think I was here 18 years in my first journey with Sassoon. Been in London, and I was in Manchester, and I worked in many different places, a little stint in Germany. And that was my sort of first relationship with Sassoon, that lasted a long time, and I enjoyed a really amazing journey and learnt so much. It made me really, there's so many amazing people I work with. Mark, of course, Tim, of course, Vidal was still around then. Other great hairdressers that, are still doing amazing things out on the scene now, that I work with in Manchester in particular. And it was a fantastic journey for me. The bit I'd missed, I felt, was perhaps the part of me that wanted to go and do my own thing. I'd been there 18 years, as I say, and I thought then was a good moment. There'd been some changes within Sassoon, ownerships and things like that. And it sort of felt like a little bit of an end of an era and perhaps a good opportunity to try and sort of stretch my legs a little bit and do something else. And that's when I went away and did Soho. And again, great learning journey for me, and, really sort of gave me lots of things that I'd not perhaps understood as a salon hairdresser or as an educator the first time round. Having your own business is a huge learning curve, as anybody will tell you. But then for this opportunity to come up another 18 years later, more or less, something about 18s for me, then it was such an opportunity to again, try and expand
yourself.
Myself,
so just
yeah.
we talked about your title, which is International
Creative Director. Yeah.
At Sassoon.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means I, along with Mark, obviously, you know, he's sort of stepped aside in a sense, but is very much the guiding light, you know. But I've been invited to steer the creative direction of Sassoon moving forwards, you know.
I mean, that is like unbelievable honour.
Yeah, isn't it?
Pressure.
Yes, yeah, that too.
What do you envisage? Do you see changes? Do you see what direction do you want to take things?
I think I've probably gained quite a bit of knowledge in having my own business, you know, and a broader perspective, I think, on hair, that I'm hoping I can bring back into Sassoon. You know, Sassoon was always about being on the front foot. It was always about progression. That's what Sassoon is for me. It's about being directional and being ahead of the curve. And we've got an amazing team here. And I feel that perhaps in some way Sassoon's perhaps is looked upon more as being this kind of stoic, expert, holder, keeper of the flame, if you like, of technique. But it's so much more than that. And I think that's, for me, that's what I want to let shine.
When you said it's so much more than that.
It's, if we think about perhaps that perception that Sassoon is a bit too technique focused, I think. I don't think it is completely technique focused. The Sassoon is, you know, it is the epitome of technique, but like I say, it's so much more than that. I think it's been perceived as being those very kind of classic, strong Sassoon shapes. But even the collections that have been produced over the years, they don't necessarily reflect that, but I feel the perception is perhaps a little bit more that than it needs to be, you know, and I want to let the other parts shine. You know?
What could that be?
I think it could be any manner of things. I think for me, it's about, hair for me is about things being, quite alive, quite touchable, hair that we can kind of connect with, but also hair that kind of perhaps challenges and suggests something unexpected. So I think all those things, it's not like I've got a blueprint for this is exactly what I want to do. You know, this is for me really very much first and foremost working with Mark, understanding the business. I've been away for a very long time. And, you know, Mark for me epitomizes the cream of professionalism, you know, within our industries. He's a great mentor, and I really want to embrace that. And, you know, I'm loving, I'm only a week in and I'm loving working with Mark again.
A week in.
Yeah. And
how have you found that, you know, just coming in a week into this? I mean, you know, it's so early days, isn't it?
Everybody's been so lovely. So, you know, it was a great first week for me. You know, it's a whirlwind. Now I'm still only on day 6. So it's still very
feels
much
like starting school for your new school, does it?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. Got my new lunchbox, and you know, and in it came on Monday.
Pencil case.
Yes, exactly.
Compass.
Yeah, already lost somewhere in the bottom of my bag. But everybody was, you know, very welcoming, and you know, I think everybody's sort of excited for perhaps a different energy coming in. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it was massive news, Richard.
Yeah.
I mean, you built up a huge reputation, you know, as one of the best out there, certainly cut in with Sacco, or Seiko, should I say. How difficult was that for you to come away from Seiko?
It was very hard. It wasn't an easy decision. But on balance, when I looked at my journey at Seiko, I did feel, I feel I've enjoyed every moment there. It was great, and I built up a great profile for the business, you know, certainly creatively. got to work with some amazing individuals, you know, as we grew the business there. But the opportunity to come back to Sassoon and put myself into Sassoon, you know, leave some of myself in Sassoon is, as you say, it's the biggest privilege for me in hairdressing. So it was irresistible.
It is. I mean, I've got to be honest, for a lot of people, it would seem a dream role, because I'm guessing that you're working on the creative side of hairdressing now, and not so much the business side, that you know, as an owner of a salon.
Maybe not the hands-on nitty-gritty ends of the business, perhaps I was required to do within Seiko. You know, here there's a much bigger team, you know, it's a much bigger operation in that sense. So I feel much more supported, and honestly, that was an attractive thing for me, to work within a bigger team and to do bigger and greater things, and also to work with Mark again. I had a great working relationship with Mark first time round. You know, we did some amazing things together. So we've got some incredible memories from those days, different shows, traveling across the world together and doing great things. And that's a really important aspect of it for me. You know, Debbie as well, coming in and taking over the main leadership role within the business, steering the business. She's a super accomplished lady, a smart lady, and that for me is a great draw, to be working with people of that caliber. Whereas probably at Seiko I was a little bit more of an island, while I had a creative team with me. It wasn't working together with them on a day-to-day basis because everybody was in different locations, and I feel perhaps here there's a real concentration of minds, you know, concentration of talents, and it's very exciting.
How does your mind work creatively, Richard?
How does it work creatively? That's a golden question, isn't it? I probably wish I could dive into my own head and work that one out myself. I think that the way my attitude towards being creative is just trying to walk around with my head up, my eyes open, fundamentally, and not try too hard with it. I'm not really a fan of trying to go looking for inspiration. I don't think that's the way to do it. I think just being a sponge and letting things kind of permeate through you, finding the things that genuinely excite you.
But what does excite you? You know, with the years that you've been in the industry, yeah, you've got to still find that excitement.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm still excited by hair. I'm excited by fashion, photography. You know, all different art forms. You know, architecture, all those different things. Music plays a big part in my world, if you like. I tried for some time to try and make a living out of music, which didn't work out for me. I was clearly no, you don't need to. I was clearly a much better hairdresser. Yeah. Many bands I was in. Yeah.
Any success at all?
Not particularly, no. But tried very hard, you know, particularly when I was in Manchester. So I spent about 10 years in Manchester, and it was at that time when
Manchester scene,
you know, the Hacienda, the Stone Roses.
Was you a front
Oasis.
man? Was you the front man?
I was, yeah. Much to my kids' amusement. You know,
I think that's brilliant. I never knew that.
But anyway, I've you know, sort of music's always been important to me, and music was the thing that opened my eyes to everything else. It really unlocked.
Why does music unlock something?
Because it's so emotional, isn't it? You make such an emotional connection to it. It matters more than anything, or it certainly did matter more than anything when I was a teenager. You know, there was nothing that resonated more strongly for me than the music. You know.
What was your life like as a teenager?
I grew up in like a suburban part of Sheffield, near to where I'm going to age myself now, but when I was at senior school, it was the time of the miners' strikes, and the main place where all the riots were happening was maybe 2 miles from where I grew up. So half the kids in my school were children of miners, And so it was quite a politicized moment.
Because it was very divided, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, it was.
I'm guessing we're sharing the same sort of time of growing up. And yeah, certainly for a lot of our younger listeners, it was a very divided time, difficult all round. Yeah. But I guess in such a kind of area, and miners, work, what about hairdressing? What was the view of going into the industry for you and from those around you?
I mean, I think if I just step back and we're talking about music, as I say, unlocked a lot of things for me. It made me definitely connect with certain people. As I started to go out and go to clubs and see bands and things like that, I would meet like-minded people. And one of my friends back then, by far the coolest person I knew was a hairdresser. I used to go in and get my hair cut, and it was an amazing, creative pub in the centre of my city, you know, and everybody looked amazing. They played great music, you know, and it just felt very exciting for me. So my original plan was to go and study fashion, to do a degree in fashion. I ended up taking a year out. My dad told me I got to get a job. It was a bit of a no-brainer. What am I going to do for a year? I'll go and be an assistant in a hairdressing salon. That's how it started, you know. I never went to do the fashion degree. And, and here I am.
Have you had to work at really getting the most out of the industry? Has there been times where you just thought, this isn't an industry for me? And how have you overcome that?
I definitely had my sort of moments of doubt, of struggle with it, you know. No, never anything with the hair, actually, ever.
You've always enjoyed...
I've always enjoyed the hair.
How do we do that? Because there are a lot of people that say, I'm bored. Yeah, it feels predictable.
Yeah.
How have you always kept your love for hair?
I talk quite often about, when I'm teaching, I speak of trying to sort of be engaged with what you're doing, you know, and trying never to allow yourself to sort of go through the motions. Because for me, that's when the rock sets in. And I think you can find much more enjoyment. You can find learning, and you can find progression if you've connected with what you're doing. You know, if your head's actually in what you're doing and you're not just going through the motions, you learn from every mistake. You learn from every success. You know, every time you do a great haircut, you know exactly why that's happened. Every time you do a bad one, hopefully there's not too many bad ones, but you understand why that mistake was made because you've been in the game while you've been doing it, you know. And I think people are always super exciting, you know. People are very, very interesting, and that is the centre of hairdressing for me. You know, all those individual characters that we get in the salon or as models or whatever it is. I think it's about trying to get to the essence of the person and trying to understand that. And the challenge of that, I think, is
I find that really interesting, the essence of the person, because that's so much of what we do, isn't it?
Yeah,
the
100%.
highly sensitive person, somebody said to me, as a hairdresser, and you have to feel quite attuned to people as well. Has your career gone in a direction that's beyond what you expected? Or do you look and think, you know, did I achieve this?
I mean, I'm sat here today as International Creative Director of House of Sassoon, you know.
Does it get any bigger than that?
I don't think so. No, I don't.
It's almost like managing Real Madrid or Barcelona, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in my mind...
If I look back to that person I was when I saw that Sassoon collection in that magazine in Sheffield, in my mum's hairdresser's salon, and thinking, wow, that is incredible. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
To go from there to where I am now is.
What would you say then to somebody, to our listener, who has big dreams, big vision? What have they got to do to make it happen? What have you done to make it happen?
I mean, I think we hear a lot, and it's 100% true, but we hear a lot about, you know, don't be in a rush, you know, work hard, just try and be the best person that you can, try and improve on what you do on a daily basis. And it's 100% that, you know, but I think it's about not always trying to have too much of an end goal in mind that you're going to strive for and possibly
So
feel
you've never
like,
had that?
not particularly. No, I've never thought to myself, oh, I wanted to be in this position. You know, I've only ever thought, what can I do to make myself better? What can I do to broaden my mind?
And what has that been then to do all those things?
Listen, everybody has their own sort of things that kind of turn them on, don't they? You know, whether that's books or it's, you know, images or movies or, you know,
but
music.
how does that all translate into hair? That's where, because I often hear, you know, how do you get inspired? I think it's an over-asked question because, but how does music and architecture and all that translate into hair? And how does that help you evolve and grow and become better and better?
I think it can translate on a very obvious level. Oh, that singer, whatever, that person looks amazing. I love their hair. You know, I'm inspired by that. That's a very kind of superficial level, I think. For me, it's just, as I said to you before, I think it's much more about just being a bit of a sponge, absorbing things, looking at things, appreciating things, you know, asking questions of things, you know, how, why, you know, finding out more about things, doing some research. When you find something that interests you, go away and explore it, you know. And through that exploration, you find, because it's interested you, you find out about yourself. What is it about that caught my eye? What was it that sparked that interest, you know? And I guess you understand yourself a little bit more.
Just understanding yourself, Richard, I think that's a really interesting one, is, how would you best describe yourself as a person?
I think I'm probably quite a few people. So, you know, at work, I think I'm a hard-working, sort of diligent person, open-minded, approachable, I hope, you know, positive for the most part. And then at home, you know, then there's another life. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and you know, there's so many other things. But I think you never, I imagine, and certainly for me, I don't believe I'll ever know myself completely. You know, life is that journey of discovery, isn't it?
100%.
Just going back to your question before about what would you advise somebody? I think it's about enjoying the journey. The journey is everything.
I couldn't agree more.
And if you enjoy the journey and you are committed to the journey, then the life will find you, I think, you know.
I think this is a really interesting point, and I'm guessing, you know, because of the minor strike school, so I kind of worked out age-wise, you look super cool still. But that's a really interesting one. And
for my age.
No, you look super cool, mate. If you were 20 or 40, 50, whatever, you look super cool. But I think it is an important question because there are lots of people in our industry who aren't all at the start, but they're actually still probably trying to find their journey, and they may be in their 40s, their 50s, thinking, actually, I've still got ambition here.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? And you know, how ambitious are you in your journey still? Because I have friends who are probably starting to work towards retired life. And, you know, for me, I still feel I'm starting out in my career. What words of comfort could you give to people maybe later in their hairdressing career, particularly?
I mean, I think that fulfillment has to come from your own action, you know, and fulfillment is different for everybody. Fulfillment might be spiritual enlightenment. It might be achievements in your career, you know, having a family. There are so many areas we can feel fulfilled, right? But as I say, I think the only way you can approach life is to try. And listen, I'm no guru, no expert, but the only way I can find I can sort of rationalize life is just to try and say yes a little bit more and be positive and see what it might bring, you know. But if you say yes, you've got to be all in.
Because that's a really interesting point as well, is saying yes, but actually learning to say no.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How good are you at saying no?
Not always great at saying no. Not always great.
And what problems can that give?
I think you can spread yourself a little too thinly, for sure. You know, I think you know, you're only one person at the end of the day, aren't we? And you know, you have to sort of apportion your time and your energy effectively.
Because in your role, certainly with Seiko and now here as International Creative Director at Sassoon, you're going to have to be really good at it. I'm guessing you're going to have a team around you who's going to help you in that. But there is, I guess, a real sort of pressure, because I'm getting the impression as well, and you know, when I had my interview with Mark and getting to know the team, that Sassoon seems to be going on a new journey itself.
I feel so. You know, I feel it's like a new era, and it's something I very much wanted to be a part of. You know,
and having you in on that makes it feel even more of a new era. Is this kind of for you as a role where, you know, you're maybe going to move into Mark's position, as Mark maybe thinking, look, I'm going to hand the baton to you solely? Is that something you could share with us?
I think down the line, that's the idea. You know, I mean, he's Mark's literally stepped aside to allow me to come in and be part of it, you know, and to influence the Sassoon creatively, you know. Obviously Mark's still here and he's very present, and Mark is still very much creatively the figurehead of the business, isn't he? And for me, he is also, you know. But I think Mark, you'd have to ask Mark, but I think perhaps from Mark's perspective, it's it gives him other opportunities, you know, to be perhaps less, to be a little bit more free.
It's going to be nice for him to, you and Mark, I guess, to bounce off each other. I mean, that's a thing that I'm quite excited to see and how that's going to look.
Yeah.
Are you already sat down and maybe?
Yeah. To be honest with you, as I said to you before, I had a great working relationship with Mark back in the day. And for me, it felt like yesterday. On day one, you know, we were already back in the flow of that. You know, that was such that's the easiest thing really for me, is making that reconnection with Mark on a creative partnership level. Yeah,
what comes over? Yeah, I've had the pleasure to interview Mark a couple of times, and very recently here at the Academy. And everything that runs through Sassoon for me actually is the people behind it that I'm getting to know. All seem very humble and very down to earth people, where sometimes if you're looking from the outside, maybe people have this perception that Sassoon could be a little bit pretentious.
Yeah. But I think that I 100% agree with you. I think perhaps the perception is of this super brand that is completely untouchable, unapproachable, and is the pinnacle of hairdressing. And it definitely, for me, is definitely the pinnacle of hairdressing. And it is a super brand, you know.
It is a super brand. But
the people within it are not superstars in that sense, where
but that's why it's a super
they're unapproachable.
Is that why it's a super brand, really? Because I feel sometimes people try too hard to be too pretentious because they want to make things look good, where I think people are just very comfortable with what they do. And,
people are very good at what they do here, you know. And so perhaps there's not that need for the pretense, you know, because they're comfortable in their own skin about the way the things they can do with hair, and, you know, the way they can connect with people. And I think obviously anybody that's been here as a student or a client, they know that. But when you look at it perhaps from the outside and you've not had that point of connection, it could perhaps seem a little daunting to perhaps come and do a course here or come and get your hair cut here. But actually, once you've stepped over the threshold, you realise, just as you said, everybody's so warm, everybody's so welcoming. There's no
I love it.
no big egos happening. It's
I genuinely, I have to say now, been here now a few times, and everybody, I just really like it. The vibe of it is just really feels great, and even getting to know you, Richard, I can see why you are the fit for this whole position. But it's a question that you know, Vidal Sassoon is the man who, you know, we all look to as the biggest, most well-known icon ever to come out of the industry, alongside probably someone like Trevor Sorber. But Vidal Sassoon, he's going to be looking down on you in this role. I mean, what would if he was saying something to you in today, 2025, what would he say to you about this position and what you should do with this going forward?
I think he would probably just tell me to trust my instinct. I think that's, you know, Vidal was always a very warm and positive and encouraging character, you know.
Did you meet Vidal?
Yeah.
You were,
So in my last journey here, I had the privilege to work with him a few times, and he was, I don't know him, or didn't know him as closely as Mark knew him. Mark's obviously been at Sassoon for a long time and worked with Vidal over many years. But for 10 years or so, you know, I got to do many things with Vidal and got to kind of sort of feel his brilliance. You know, he's one of the few people I've ever met that if you had your back to the door, you knew when he'd walked in the room, just the atmosphere would change. His aura was incredible. You know, that was an immense gift he had. And, you know, that sort of charismatic presence he had was infectious, you know, and he always encouraged me to do whatever I felt was the right thing. You know, he was never imposing particularly his opinion or idea. Always offered thoughts, encouragement, but I think it's about you staying true to yourself. And I think it's probably important to say that Sassoon have never recruited externally into a senior position. And I'm not fully external because I did my growing up at Sassoon, you know, so I am Sassoon. I've always been Sassoon, you know. But it's nice to be able to come back with a slightly different perspective on things, you know, to bring perhaps a different flavour. The academy team and everybody who's involved at Sassoon, what's their reaction been to yourself? Are they excited by this? Have you got... Thankfully amazing so far. Yeah. Many of the team I know, because, you know, Sassoon's one of those unique organisations that retains staff because it is a great company to work.
Once you come here, you stay here.
Yeah.
Almost to that point.
It's a great business to work for, you know.
Yeah.
A great organisation to be a part of. So there are many faces, many friends that are still here, and that was very reassuring coming back here, that, you know, I was going to get to work with some amazing people.
Was you nervous?
Yeah, of course I was nervous. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think, like you see, you sort of, you mentioned first day at school, you know, it was a little bit like that, you know.
Yeah, would be.
But it wasn't coming into something completely unknown for me. It was just walking back into something. It's like coming home, you know, it's like walking back into something that grew me initially. So, and I understand Sassoon, you know. And so it's not such a big reach for me to try and integrate myself back into that mindset, because I've always had that mindset, you know, it's always been a part of me.
The one thing that I've noticed, certainly since we had our interview with Mark and it's been shared on socials, and I'm not surprised by it, but it's almost a cult following of Sassoon in the nicest of ways, because cults can sometimes conjure up the wrong. There is a massive cult behind the whole Sassoon heritage and family around the world.
Yeah. It's a beacon, Sassoon.
It is. Like nothing else.
And I think we You know, those of us that are, those of us that appreciate technique and what it brings to, what it adds to our repertoire, adds to our game. You know, Sassoon is the pinnacle. It is that beacon.
I like that. You just said appreciate technique. What do you mean by that? For a lot of people, they may think, well, what on earth does appreciate technique mean?
Everybody knows Sassoon is the pinnacle of technique. So for me, Sassoon has explored a technical approach to hair that gives it such a huge advantage in terms of the way we can think about hair. And technique isn't everything. I'm aware of that.
Can we break those techniques?
Of course we can. You can break everything, you know. Once you understand the rules, you can break the rules, right? But that attainment in understanding hair through the use of technique gives you a great advantage. It's great for so many things, you know, great for understanding how to create shape, great for understanding what you can do, what you can't do, and then great for also throwing all those things to one side and doing.
I'm going to ask you a question, and it's with technique, and it's just because in the past it created such a divided argument, but there was talk with a former Sassoon employee who worked or came through, and they thought that, you know, they didn't believe you can't use texturizing scissors, thinning scissors to work with haircut. Do you have a viewpoint on that?
Oh, you're trying to nail me to the wall, aren't you? Do I have a view on it?
Yeah.
For me, I don't really, even after leaving Sassoon the first time round, I've never stepped into using a razor.
Okay.
I have a pair of thinning scissors somewhere for those guys that have got rugs, and I can't point into it because my fingers are too fat to do so. So just out of necessity. But I've never felt, because I've been given that grounding, I've never felt I needed another tool particularly. I always felt like I can create.
So your scissors,
they can do everything for me, really, you know. Just understanding how to use them.
Because people will say as well, as hair and society has changed, texture, freedom, you know, we see a much more undone kind of wearer of hair.
Yeah.
How could that fit into the Sassoon philosophy? And is that maybe something that you would like to bring, or does
I think we mustn't confuse technique with like structured hair, like helmet heads.
Because sometimes
that's not what it is. That's not what technique is. Technique is just an understanding of how to create shape, how to create texture, how to create movement.
But I think for people, they will perceive Sassoons, even if you look throughout the history, sharp lines, geometric shapes.
Yeah.
About that, you know, maybe
they associate that with Sassoon because a lot of that's very difficult to do. And Sassoon is
why people come from all over the world to do this at these
Sassoon
courses.
are the people that can do that, and they can teach that. So I think that the rest of the stuff gets forgotten about, and just it's just a straight line association. You know, Sassoon equals technique equals geometry, and it is that, but it's so much more than that. You know, you've only to look back through the archive, through the 60s, the 70s in particular, and 80s, and at the Sassoon archive, and you'll see all that texture, all that movement is all there.
Do you like texture and movement?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I like it all, you know. But I think it's a great moment for us to kind of share all those other aspects that we're good at. You know, we're not just that one-dimensional geometric haircutter, you know.
Yeah, well, that's why
amazing colorists, amazing hairdressers, amazing haircutters. You know, it's all there. And I'm hoping I can let some of those things shine as well, because I really appreciate those aspects too.
But you made a really interesting point. People come to Sassoon for their education because the technique to those haircuts, isn't it?
Who else can offer
Because
that?
once you've got those
Yeah.
haircuts, the ABC,
Yeah.
and it kind of sets you on your way.
Yeah.
You can break the rules then if
Yes.
that's your style of work, isn't
Yeah.
it? But
Yeah.
I guess for Sassoon, you've got to keep to those principles, really, because that's what brings people to the courses, your shows around the world.
That's the foundation of Sassoon education, isn't it? The ABC, all those classics. But it is it's a journey of learning, isn't it? Those things form the basis, the foundation of our craft. But beyond that, you can break that down and you can add lots of different elements into that give you, all sorts of permutations of hair, all sorts of feelings. And
what's your first big project? What are you going to get stuck into?
We are getting stuck into first doing some work with the team, some training stuff, trying to perhaps revitalize the internal training programs. I've got some ideas with that I'm working on with Mark. We're working on a salon collection as well, which I'm super excited about. Yeah, and it's only day 6, but we're already knee deep in those right now. So.
I always, you'll hear it throughout my podcast, throughout the 8 years. I think quite often when I talk to real creative minds in the industry, and I always say, creating them collections, certainly if you like music, and you'll probably hear me on it, them collections are like creating your album, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's your album.
I've heard that. I've heard that once before, actually. Yeah, it is. Yeah, because it's a moment. An album's just a sort of a.
It's a collection. It's
capturing a moment in time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a great joy to discovering how to represent those feelings and emotions and those ideas and images, and working to produce an image or a piece of footage.
I'd love to go deeper. I am going to do a new podcast series, The Collection, and go deep into collections, because I think the thought process into collections
it's such a great journey. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and I'd love to learn more about those things and really get the deep understanding of that. Look, I've got you here, Richard, on a time which you must just be hyped up at the moment, because you've got your new role, and also you was announced as a nominee as British Hairdresser of the Year.
Friday,
how did that feel for you?
Amazing. I think, it's such a great privilege, isn't it? It's such an amazing recognition in many ways of a lot of hard work for all those, myself included, all those nominees, all incredible people, incredible hairdressers.
Do you feel the pressure now? You've got to crack those looks, though. I mean, I don't know.
Always feel pressure on that. Yeah, for sure. I think you've got to represent yourself honestly, and I think you have to represent yourself to the best of your ability, So there's great pressure to stay true to yourself, but perhaps push yourself out of your own comfort zone as well a little bit. But yeah, or that phone call from Jane, it always takes me a day or two for that.
Is this your third novel?
6th, I think.
Is it 6?
6th. Yeah.
I didn't realise it was 6 times.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. I'm sure it's 5, 6. I'm sure it's 6.
How do you feel on those nights of the awards? Yeah, because you have, it's a busy day, isn't it, at the British Hairdressing Awards finals? I know I've had the pleasure to go backstage and interview, and
you've got to prepare your models for the show, and there's a lot of rehearsing, there's a lot of waiting around, of course. It's a big event and a lot goes into it. But I try as much as I can to enjoy the moment of being there. Again, that's a very special day. It's a special moment. If you're very lucky, it culminates into a win at the end of it. And, that's not happened for me yet.
If you did win, because, you are representing British hairdressing, how would you use that title for the good of the industry?
For me, I think I would try and champion very much the younger people within our industry and the potential young people coming into it. I feel very passionate about equipping people with the tools to succeed. And that definitely includes a great understanding of how to control hair and how to be creative. It allows you to be creative, that understanding, you know, and I think that then equals a more fulfilling journey. I think it equals a longer journey. And the thing that worries me is perhaps the duration of time that people are in hairdressing these days has changed a little bit. I know the world's changed, but sometimes I feel that people don't stay in the industry because they're not being fully fulfilled by it in some way. And I feel in part that has to be down to the training. That has to be down to the knowledge they have and what they're able to do with it and how far they feel they can take themselves as a result of that. So we've got amazing organisations within our profession that help young people. And I would like to just add my perspective and my voice to those great organisations that are doing the amazing things. We have an amazing programme called Sassoon Connect, which I'm sure you know about, which is working with schools and colleges.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
To try and sort of underpin learning for those kids that are going to college, for then supporting the teachers that are teaching those kids. So I would just like to step up as much as I can and support all those amazing organisations that are doing great things for the younger people. It's a young industry, and it's a great industry. As Mark said on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, what an amazing opportunity to have an incredible life through hairdressing. You know, it's taken me all over the world. I've met incredible people. You know, it's looked after myself and my family, and I would recommend it to anybody. It's an incredible profession, you know, and I'm all about celebrating that and trying to encourage people into that. You know, as our industry changes, we need new people coming into it, new approaches, new ideas, and they're the future after all, aren't they? So that's where my time and attention would go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the industry's had it's changing. It's always had its times, isn't it? You know, there's good, there's bad, but you know, I think as an industry goes, I just think it's full of opportunities and different pathways.
Agreed,
and understanding that, and you've got to work at those things going forward. So whilst I'm here, and I've got to ask you about it, noise.
Yeah.
I mean, what an event. I've not yet been to a noise event. No, every time I'm thinking I need to go to a noise event. You told us about this, and is this still going to be happening?
It is still going to be happening. Yeah. Debbie and Mark were still very keen for that to happen.
Because was that part of a Seiko?
No, noise was never part of a Seiko thing. It was a sort of a personal project for me, and obviously Seiko performed at it many times.
So it was a personal project
it's very much a personal project for me, a creative project, you know, about just giving a blank piece of paper and saying,
what made you want to do it? What was that about? How did that happen?
That was just to perhaps excite myself a little bit. I think perhaps it was a bit self-indulgent at the beginning. And it was only meant to be a one-off thing to have a bit of fun with some friends. You know, we had some friends in town. I had Expression in town. My old workmate, Peter Gray, was in town. He's a session hairdresser. Tim Hartley was always been a cheerleader for, you know, and a maverick, you know, so he was in. So there was the four of us, and I wanted to do something that was a bit more like a sort of like an old school rave. Don't tell anybody what it is.
Yeah.
You know, keep the location secret. Very sort of basic production values. No rules. You get up there and, you know, and just sort of throw it down.
How did people become part of performing on that stage? How did that happen? if somebody said, I'm going to perform at Noise. I mean, I saw last year Sophia Hilton was there, how does that happen? Do you reach out to people?
Sometimes I'll reach out to people, and sometimes people reach out to me and share their sort of love and appreciation for it, and say they'd love to do something. And people send in like a sort of a submission, if you like. It's nothing formal. It's not that sort of type of a process, but it's this is what I'd like to do.
We're going to see it again this year.
You are indeed, yeah. It's already
Salon International Weekend.
The 11th.
Because last
Saturday,
year you were at HairCon, didn't you? You took it to HairCon.
We did a little pop-up
vibe.
version of it at a Noise takeover we did. There was just a couple of teams. There was myself and Jorge Cancer. And we did like a little taster, sort of a Noise takeover. And but then we did it in London again.
Because you do this global as well. This isn't just a London thing, is it? Is it Seoul? Is it Seoul? Where else?
We're doing Shanghai. That's the next one, and then Sydney and London, and then we're doing.
Is it a serious business model? I mean, that's always the thing.
It does not earn any money at all. Far from it.
Do you get sponsorship for these things?
Yes.
Just to cover everything that goes in.
I need sponsorship for it. Yeah,
because it's got to come out of your money, or your back pocket, hasn't it, or ticket money.
Yeah, which the London show does. My wife and I sort of support that one, but everywhere else, and to be honest with you, the London ones are kind of it still keeps the same idea and format as we did, almost whatever it was, 13 years ago.
Will you still have the same intensity and time to put into it, considering your new role?
Yes. Yeah. But it's, I don't do it every month. There's like select occasions where I do it. I try not to do more than 4 a year. So 3-4 years max, really. And, but just going back to your question, it needs a partner in there. It needs somebody else who believes in it. And thankfully, I keep finding those people that want to bring it here or take it.
Who are those? How do people become partners in that then?
They're usually that's just a really random email going, I love the show. I've been to it many times. I have a business that I feel that could support that idea.
And that's how it will then happen.
Yeah. And then I work with them to try and, support them, deliver the show,
How much fun do you have with it?
Oh, great. It's amazing. Yeah. It's a real family thing, there's no, it's never like an us and them thing. It's for everybody. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
That's,
no,
it's made by everybody because, we're only there because people want to see it. So, they're always great experiences. Everybody brings something new to the table each and every time, And
well, I'm so pleased that that's still going to happen. I guess will Sassoon sort of help be part of this now a little bit? Yeah, for sure. Which is nice. I'll be interested to see how that comes.
You might have just leaked the first team that we're going to have in October.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I won't ask where because nobody will know where until.
They won't know until a couple of hours before.
It's really clandestine, isn't it? I love that idea and that format and the excitement, and I'm going to be there for sure on this one.
I'm super iconic venue this time. I've been trying to get this venue for 10 years. Have
you got it?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to get in early because we do it on a Saturday night. It's a nightmare to find.
Well, and not the cheapest time in London either.
No. But it's a nightmare. Saturday nights are always busy, and all. So
again, I mean, I'm sure you for people, you have your own Instagram socials for Noise, don't you?
Yeah. No, Noise Event Official.
Okay.
Noise _event _.
And I guess that's a place to just go for it and just
jump
keep
on
up
there, and
and that's
you can always get to it via my Instagram as well. You can link to it there.
But I love what you've done in the industry. If I was gonna look at somebody and think, I'd love a career direction like somebody, I probably wouldn't look too far from yourself, actually, Richard, because I think you can I like music. I like how you've done that, but you're focusing on what you love in the industry, cutting and your passion, but also, all the other little elements of creativity come into it. A bit like Noise, that allows you to bring in maybe that musician part of you into creating a gig. Maybe. So look, bringing it to end, I could keep talking to you. I'm just conscious of time. It's wonderful. I wanted to have this interview with you for a very, very long time. I remember, I think, reaching out to you and I'm just glad we got this time right.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure to sit down with you finally.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we could do this in person. I think that's why I wanted to do this, get out and be. So look, I mean, just leave us with a little tease of, maybe what should we be excited for with yourself and Sassoon's going forward? Be
excited for Sassoon, everybody's behind this next 70 years. It's just been 70-year anniversary of Sassoon, and everybody's really behind and committed to making the next 70 incredible as well, and obviously I'm here at the beginning of that. So I think we could all be excited for what Sassoon will do, and I feel blessed to be sat here today talking to you, but blessed that my career has taken me that full circle and I'm back here, and really reinvigorated myself in terms of, what I can bring to the table and what we can do as a team together.
I'm a huge fan. I'm even more of a huge fan now after this. Really, thank you so much, Richard. It's been brilliant.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome, mate. Absolutely.